All right, let's talk about a technique that gets a really, really bad rap. Some people call it a beginner's trick, a cheat even. But in reality, it's a tool of almost surgical precision that professional artists have been using for centuries. We're talking about the grid method. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you not just how it works, but the profound why behind its incredible power. So let's just get right to the heart of it, shall we? Is the grid method just a crutch, kind of like painting by numbers for people who can't really draw? Or is it a sophisticated instrument, a secret weapon for achieving perfect, undeniable accuracy? That's the big question, and I promise you, the answer might just change how you think about the whole act of creating art.
You know, the funny thing is, this idea that the grid is a cheat is actually a pretty modern one. Think about it. Before we had projectors or even photography, how would you scale a small, perfect sketch onto a giant wall for a fresco? This was it. This was the only technology they had. The Renaissance masters weren't just winging it on a 60-foot wall, no way. They were using this exact method to transfer their drawings with pure mathematical certainty. It was the high-tech of their day, pure artistic engineering.
But okay, let's be real for a second. I'm sure many of us have tried the grid method and ended up with, well, a total disaster. You can be so careful, copy every little square, and the final drawing still just looks off. Well, the great artists who teach this method say it almost always comes down to one single fundamental error. It's a really subtle mistake, but it's absolutely catastrophic, and it happens before you even start drawing your subject.
You know the feeling, right? You've spent hours, maybe days, hunched over your canvas. The eye in square D5, perfect. The curve of the nose in C4, nailed it. Each little box is a mini masterpiece of accuracy. You feel pretty good about it. But then you step back to look at the whole thing and your stomach just drops. The face is weirdly long, the proportions are all wrong. It looks like a strange, distorted cousin of the person you were trying to draw. And this is where the amazing teacher Laura Palacios just hits the nail on the head. She says you end up with a portrait that looks like a character from a Modigliani painting. And that's exactly it. All that hard work, all those hours, completely wasted because of one tiny mistake in the setup. The frustration is just immense. But here's the good news. The solution is beautifully, beautifully simple.
So what is this big secret that avoids the disaster? It's not some crazy advanced geometry, I promise. In fact, it's a principle that all of us learned back in school. It's the simple, elegant power of the rule of three. Yep, that same little calculation you use to figure out how much a bag of oranges would cost is the exact key to unlocking a perfectly proportioned masterpiece.
So it all comes down to this one crucial idea, proportionality. It just means that your reference photo and your canvas have to share the same aspect ratio. That's it. If they don't, if one is a long skinny rectangle and the other is more of a square, then it doesn't matter how perfectly you copy each little box, the final image is always going to be stretched or squashed. You have to build the frame perfectly before you can put the picture inside. And the great artists at Grupo RAIIM break this down into two simple, non-negotiable calculations. First, get the canvas size right. Let's say your photo is 28 by 20 and you want your canvas to be 70 centimeters long. To find the right height, you just multiply that new length, 70, by the old height, 20, and divide it by the old length, 28. Boom, you get 50. Your canvas has to be 70 by 50. Second, you do the exact same math for the grid squares. If your original squares are 4 centimeters, the same calculation tells you the new squares must be 10. It's a foolproof system. But here's where it gets really cool. This isn't just about math. Once you have that perfect mathematical scaffold in place, something truly magical starts to happen inside your head. The technique forces a profound mental shift. It literally changes how you see. The artist Rodolfo Imuti put it so powerfully. He said, "You forget the meaning of what you're representing. It doesn't matter if it's a lip, a piece of fabric, or a reflection in an eye. Inside that tiny little square, it's just abstract information. For you, in that moment, only the point and the line exist." And wow, what a game changer that is. Think about how intimidating it is to draw a hand, right? Your brain is screaming at you about bones and muscles and fingernails. But with the grid, you're not drawing a hand. You're just copying a simple curve that starts here and ends there, all inside a tiny, manageable box. You stop interpreting and you just see. All that pressure just melts away. Okay, so let's take this up a level. In the hands of a professional, especially someone doing mind-blowing hyperrealism, this method becomes so much more than a transfer tool. It turns into a kind of high-precision GPS for drawing, allowing for an absolutely astonishing level of accuracy. And the teachers at Grupo RAIIM have the most brilliant analogy for this. To find a super crucial point, like the exact corner of a mouth or that tiny highlight in a pupil, with zero room for error, you treat the grid like a game of Battleship. You're not just eyeballing it anymore, you are mapping its exact coordinates. So, here's how it works. Inside one little square on your photo, you measure two things. The horizontal distance from the left side, that's your x-coordinate, and the vertical distance from the top, that's your y. Then you just use that simple rule of 3 math twice to find the exact corresponding x and y on your bigger canvas. You mark where they intersect, and bam! You have the mathematically perfect location for that point. It's just incredible.
But when you really step back and think about it, this idea is so much bigger than just a drawing technique. What we're really talking about here is a fundamental principle of structural harmony. The same mathematical logic that makes sure your portrait doesn't look like a funhouse mirror is the exact same logic that architects and designers use to build things that are both beautiful and strong.
So, if we boil this all down, what are the 3 big things you need to walk away with? Number 1, the grid method is not a beginner's shortcut. It is a professional's tool for precision. Number 2, the most critical step is getting the proportions right with that simple math before you even start. And number 3, its real magic is how it trains your brain to stop seeing things and start seeing the world as a beautiful universe of simple lines and shapes.
And that kind of leaves us with a final, pretty big question, doesn't it? If a simple mathematical rule can be the foundation for such incredible creative fidelity, what other fundamental structures might we be ignoring in other parts of our lives? We love to believe that success comes from some kind of raw, unstructured talent. But maybe, just maybe, true creative freedom isn't about ignoring the rules. Maybe it's about mastering the most fundamental ones, so you have a solid foundation to build anything you can imagine.